Hieronymus Bosch was a Dutch painter who painted during the 15th and 16th centuries. He was a Catholic who criticized the world around him through his art. Bosch's artwork is known for the imagery he uses to depict moral and religious concepts and the sin and evils of mankind. Bosch does this by using many images of demons, half-human animals, and machines to portray fear and the evils of man. Bosch grew up during a time the Roman Catholic Church was believed to be corrupt. During this time, the populace began to lose faith in the Catholic Church as hangings, beheadings, and burnings occurred every day in an attempt to control the populace. Some people claim that Hieronymus Bosch's art is what sparked the Surrealist movement of the 20th century, possibly making him the creator of Surrealism, or the very first Surrealist painter. Bosch was ahead of his time by painting Surrealism. Surreal artists juxtapose ideas and images that resemble those in dreams and nightmares, usually ending up with a distorted reality. Bosch incorporated many details of surrealism in his paintings using these techniques. Salvador Dali was a Spanish surrealist painter who used similar imagery compared to Hieronymus Bosch. Bosch focused more on the portrayal of religious fear, while Dali played around with the ideas of psychology and dreams. Dali knew Bosch's artwork as his paintings became popular in Spain, and denied the influence Bosch may have had on his own works when he claimed, "I myself am the anti-Hieronymus Bosch." The Seven Deadly Sins and the Four Last Things is one of Bosch's earliest and more literal pieces, as it was made before Bosch's imagination grew to hybrid creatures. This was painted on a round wooden tabletop instead of on a canvas, so it is meant to be looked down on and be seen from all sides. The four smaller circles surrounding the large circle depicts the four things a man will ever experience. There is the death of a sinner, judgment, hell, and glory. In the small circle that resembles hell, Bosch manages to depict all of the seven deadly sins and shows a punishment for each sin. The large circle depicts the seven deadly sins: wrath, envy, greed, gluttony, sloth, lust, and pride. The center of the large circle represents the eye or pupil of God in which Jesus rises from his tomb. Below Jesus is a Latin inscription that translates to, "Beware, beware, God sees," implying that God is always watching and sees everything. Philip II of Spain related to Bosch's sinful artworks and gathered many of them for his own personal collection. The Seven Deadly Sins and the Four Last Things painting was built as a tabletop for King Philip's bedroom in his palace. The Garden of Earthly Delights is a triptych, which means it is composed of three parts. When the painting is closed, there is a translucent sphere that depicts the earth, sky, and sea, and is painted in grisaille. Some people interpret this as representing the creation of the earth, while others think it has something to do with the great flood at the time of Noah, when God cleansed the world from mankind's sins. Ironically, the painting as a whole resembles the progression of sin, the beginning, middle, and end, where people are forced to suffer eternally. The left panel of the Garden of Earthly Delights is called the Garden of Eden. This is where God stands between Adam and Eve after making Eve out of one of Adam's ribs. The Garden of Eden is usually represented as a very happy and peaceful place with a lot of colors and nature, but Bosch puts pools of dark creatures to represent a dark future. Bosch gives the idea of a biblical paradise a makeover. Instead of fruit trees and nature, he uses scary, imaginary creatures and less nature. Bosch uses many cool colors in this painting, but the bright colors can deceive your mood because at a closer glance, the imagery is not as bright and happy as the colors suggested, therefore juxtaposing emotions. The central panel is called the human world. The landscape continues from the left panel to the center panel to represent the idea that one sin leads to another. The painting has no focal point, which adds to the feeling of chaos and rebellion. This panel depicts mankind engaged in many sinful acts. Notice that there is no presence of God in the center panel to show what happens when mankind is given complete and total freedom. Some examples of mankind carried away is where Bosch represents the fountain of life in the Garden of Eden with the fountain of flesh instead, where naked women seduce male horseback riders. The large fruits and cherries symbolize sensual temptations and is a repeated image as a reminder of original sin. Bosch shows young males and females enjoying everything they weren't supposed to enjoy in the 1500s, such as overindulgence in pleasure, to show the corruption of mankind and the human mind. The right panel is known as Hell and is divided into 3 levels. The top level shows hell on fire and an endless marching crowd. The middle level shows a man with a rotating platform on his head with a bagpipe to symbolize evil and lust. The bagpipes represent lasciviousness, or a feeling of offensive sexual desire. The large ears that are pierced with arrows symbolize a man's deafness to the New Testament that quotes, "If any man have ears to listen, let him hear." The bottom level is where the guilty people are confronted by their sins. Bosch personifies the 7 deadly sins and makes them mourn and suffer in hell. Each punishment is related to their sin. To show the sin of vanity, a woman is forced to stare at her reflection in a demon's behind for eternity. To represent gluttony, a man vomits in a pit for eternity. Musicians are tortured on larger versions of their instruments, representing pernicious pleasures. A hunter is devoured by his own hounds to show karma. This entire panel serves as a warning to those who have given in to the temptations of the devil, especially by incorporating many sexual innuendos and symbols. The Last Judgment is also a triptych and is the largest painting by Bosch. St. James is painted on the left shutter and St. Bavo is painted on the right shutter in Grisaille. The left panel tells a story. It starts off with God at the top in heaven. Right below him is the rebellion of the angels led by Lucifer the devil, who will be expelled from heaven. At the very bottom is God with Adam and Eve right after the creation of Eve. Above that is the temptation where Adam and Eve break God's law by eating an apple from the tree of knowledge after being told not to by God and giving in to the devil's temptations. Above that is an angel expelling Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. Bosch sets up a juxtaposition as Lucifer is expelled from heaven and man is expelled from the garden, comparing mankind to the sinful devil. The central panel is known as the Judgment. Bosch shows Christ as the judge and the angels announcing the end of time and Judgment Day. The bottom of the panel shows the terrible crimes people do that are influenced by the devil. Once again, Bosch personifies the 7 deadly sins and bases the punishments off of the sinful activities of mankind. For gluttony, the devils force dirty sewage water down an overweight man's throat. Vanity is represented by snakes biting a nude woman and a dragon following her. She walks with pointed toes and very good posture. Greed is shown by people being boiled in their own money. The big fish eating the smaller fish refers to a northern proverb saying, "The big fish eat the little," meaning people take advantage of those who are smaller and weaker than them. The right panel shows the city of hell alight by fire and in ruins. All of the people are mourning and crying that they will be spending eternity in hell. God in the upper left panel and Satan in the bottom right panel is another juxtaposition painted by Bosch. Although Hieronymus Bosch mainly focused on painting images to represent the corruption of mankind and the aftermath of sin, where mankind is punished in hell for eternity, he also uses a mixture of warm colors to set the intensity of the mood he mainly portrays: fear.